Hi everyone, my name's PK, and here I have Azim Rehman, who this episode is going to be basically exposing a lot of uncomfortable truths about online courses, about buyer's agents, and about the real estate investment industry as a whole. Azim is a super nice guy. He's got over, I think, 8 years experience in as a property investor. He's a sort of also quote unquote regular 9 to 5 corporate employee, for want of a better word. I'm also proud to say he's a client of the Property Investment Accelerator. He's bought 3 terrific properties. But this episode is not really to go on about how successful he has been as a client or whatever. In this episode, we are going to go through 9 signs of a property investment scam. And, I can talk about this till the cows come home, but you guys all know I might be a bit biased. And so I didn't reach out to Azim. He reached out to me very kindly because he doesn't have anything to sell you. Like you can't go to him for a buyer's agent service. He's not got any business to promote, but genuinely from I suppose a perspective of integrity and concern for everyone in the industry because he's dipped his toes previously working in the industry. He's found out from the inside all the different scams, all the different disingenuities that occur in the industry. And if you watch this right to the end, you might save yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars by buying a dud property, going with a dud firm, regardless of how popular, how many Google reviews, etc., they have. So, without further ado, I don't want this episode to be negative per se, but you should really tune in because it will completely enlighten or reshape the way that you see Australian real estate industry.
Welcome to the Oz Property Investment Mastery Podcast. My name's PK and I help busy people build passive income by buying top 5% growth and cash flow property and build a portfolio using data without wasting months doing research, spending weekends at inspection or catching flights, or dropping $10,000 to $20,000 on buyer's agents every single time. So if you're confused, lack confidence, and just overwhelmed with all the information and marketing misinformation available online and don't know where to start, then this show is for you.
Thank you, Azim, for making time today.
No, thank you, Big. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to being able to share, this information and value to people because I completely agree with you. I think there's just not enough of people out there who have, good enough understanding of the industry and how things work. So I think the more and more people can come out and share their experience and exposure, I think the better it is as well too. Because these are the things that you won't necessarily see through formal channels of communication, through books and online and really good quality courses. Sometimes you have to be on the inside to really see what's going on as well too, and then pull that curtain apart for for everyone else to see.
Yeah. And I think you're in a kind of a unique situation because you've, of course, you've dipped your toes into the industry, working in it, but you've also bought properties through buyer's agents. You've done my course, you've bought properties DIY through, mentoring and data. So you've kind of seen both sides and probably other dimensions of the industry too. I suppose my first question, just before we get into those 9, and I'll let you, sort of lead, what's prompting you to kind of go out of your way and do this? Like, I don't know, will this put a target on your back? It's almost like someone going on a Facebook group and kind of, sharing a whole bunch of uncomfortable truths, which people don't really like to do. I mean, even if they have a negative experience with a company, hardly anyone will take the time to go and leave a negative review because, there might be repercussions. It's just avoiding conflict, all that sort of thing. So where are you coming from in all of this?
Look, it's funny you should ask that because a few people did ask me that question when they did read this particular article that I'd written. I was like, "Oh, are you comfortable with doing this? Because it's really, really great stuff that you've written about, but also like, are you personally comfortable with it?" And the short answer is yes. I was comfortable with it to eventually, be able to share this. I think for me, the reason why I do this was number one, it's purely to be very transparent, selfish reasons, was because there is so much that I've seen over the years now where I thought, this is all just going to be sticking up here. I need to crystallize my thoughts and put it down on paper so that in the future, for my own family, I can leave a legacy behind that they can say, okay, well, like this is our dad, and this is the stuff that he's seen as he's experienced as well too. So it's actually thoughts and experience down on paper. And then that expanded out into this arena of thought, which was, well, how many people are out there who actually either already have experienced this or haven't experienced it, but they potentially are going to? And who knows, even right now, as you and I speak, PK, there could be someone right now who's getting lured by some property spooker right now as we speak because they don't know any better. So I think thought back to the things where I fell into traps or didn't really fall into traps, but was really close to getting trapped. And I look back at those experiences and ask myself the question, would I have benefited if someone actually had told me this beforehand or if this information was shared? And I'd say, yeah, absolutely. I wish someone had told me that. So, with that in my mind, I thought, I cannot think of anyone who would not want that as well too for them as well too to say, I wish someone had shared this with me before they pull the trigger on it. So that was the thinking behind it.
Right, right. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's really coming from, yeah, a good place. Let's get into it. I'll give you the mic, so to speak. Run us through it.
So the first thing I want to say is, whilst the article title is, 9 signs of property investment scam, it doesn't always necessarily mean that it's a scam per se. Sometimes it blatantly is a scam, but sometimes it's more just the fact that you're getting ripped off and you're being overcharged for a particular service or a product. So I'm just very conscious of the use of the word scam because scam can sometimes mean, hey, here's a property, and then you find out later, oh no, there's no property at all, that you purchased a blank piece of paper. So sometimes it is a scam, but sometimes it's just a case of it's actually overpriced a product or service as well too. And it's a combination of what I've experienced both personally but also professionally with buyers agents and those who work within the sales part of the industry as well too. So it's a combination of the two. And one other thing I do want to mention to the audience who is listening to this as well too is, like most industries, it's the minority who ruin it for the majority. So, anyone who's particularly new to investing, I don't want you to be taken away from this that, oh my goodness, I have to be skeptical of everyone out there. I don't think that is the case. I think the majority do work ethically and do work, are very hardworking and for the best interest of clients. But this, what I will be sharing, is the minority. And unfortunately, like most industries, they do, end up making it a bad rap for the majority. So I'll start off with the first one. So the first one to keep an eye out for is what's referred to as a live webinar. So essentially, these live webinars is what I've experienced is a combination of two topic areas, generally speaking. One is a very generic live webinar. Hey, come and join us, where you're going to learn on how to unlock financial freedom or how to unlock and get out of the trap of a 9 to 5. So it'll be a very generic topic, or sometimes it'll be very specific to say, hey, come along and we'll be sharing with you about a new hotspot or a growth corridor that's coming up as well too. So generally that's the two. And funnily enough, part of a previous, when I was working in industry, one of the things that I proactively did a lot of mystery shopping. So I went and attended a tremendous amount of different webinars. And there are a lot of these companies out there who actually are not driving these ethically. They're not live to begin with. They're actually pre-recorded webinars. And there are a few ways you can tell, because if you're new to this and you jump online, you won't necessarily know, but there are a few ways you can actually tell. So the first one is when you jump in onto this, the consistent thing that I found was you're automatically muted. There's automatically no video that you can see of the other participants. You have no visibility of who is in there. It just feels like it's just you who's entered this virtual room. That's one thing to keep an eye out on. And the second is they often, throughout the course of the webinar, they'll start to ask you questions. So, for instance, they'll say, can I get a yes for this reason? Or, if there's anyone out there who's a first time investor, can I just get you guys just to share with me? Or can you guys do this and so forth, and ask you to actively involved. And when I was in these webinars and I was actively involving myself and entering in, the responses that they required, not once, PK, not even once was my name mentioned, even though I was the first person to enter in a response. So I thought back, I'm like, okay, this is very interesting. This is a pattern I'm emerging. So I'm saying this again and again, and that's not happening. And another instance as well, too, it was daytime, but the individual who was speaking, you could tell it was actually nighttime. It was dark, the blinds were closed, the light was on. But someone who's so completely consumed by what they are saying to you, you
Mm.
sometimes forget about these signs that are around you as well too. So there are a few things that I've noticed that ends up happening, and one thing in particular is certain individuals who are hosting, they'll say things along the lines of, after a couple of minutes have passed, okay, so we've got over 100 people on the call now, so I think we'll get started, right? So they'll use throwaway terms like how many people on there to make you psychologically believe, oh, wow, these guys are really reputable. A lot of people are interested in what they have to say. I've come to the right party, so to speak.
Sure.
So there's a lot of that sort of things that take place that are to keep an eye out when it comes to live webinars.
Right. I don't know if it's just me, but I just always assumed they were, like, not live to begin with. Maybe it's just me. I was like, "There's no way these guys are running ads, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of ads. There's no way they're doing, like, a live thing every night," and you know what I mean? So, maybe I'm just too skeptical for my own good.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, generally speaking, the information is accurate to a certain degree. It is generic, and if you are someone who's wanting to dip your toes into it, you will get some value out of it. But it's just something to be aware of. And that kind of leads to the second sign, which is typically with these webinars or seminars, there'll often be an offer, so to speak, that they'll give to you.
Mhm.
And that offer is either a product that they have available, which is essentially an investment property to purchase, or it could be a service that they'll do. And how they position it to you is could be in a different ways. They'll either put a time frame on it to say that we're actually providing you this opportunity. It's limited time only. It's for a certain amount of people. Or they'll also offer some additional incentives to say, we'll reduce this is normally priced at $5,500, but we're going to reduce it down to 1,999, which will include, you'll get a full portfolio review done. You'll have your conveyancing included as well too, and a whole bunch of things that are normally part of a property transaction purchase. They'll
Mm.
be off that as well too, and they strategically do it right at the end. So they've spent that hour, an hour and a half with you to provide you the education, build your confidence as a consumer that they are reputable, reliable, credible, and then at the end, I'll put this offer in place to make you have a fear of missing out. Um, and that's something else to be mindful of as well. And I would encourage people as well to do not ever, whether it's live, actually in person, or if this is on a call, never fall into this trap where you need to, succumb to that offer that they're doing there. That it's done deliberately. There's a sales and a psychology behind it. So I think you should always be very mindful of that as well too.
And oftentimes in any industry, I think they say, you'll get this thing, and there'll be like 10 things, and the combined value is like $120,000, but in the next hour, you get it for 2,000, whatever it is. So they'll load up a whole bunch of like arbitrary value statistics in there that I found as well.
Yeah. And just on that note, just as a passing thought, as well too, I find that if you genuinely what you have to provide to clients out there, if it genuinely has value, um, they will purchase it. They will purchase from you, or they will go down that avenue. You do not need to pressure them with a limited time in order for them to make a decision. If it genuinely has value, it will come to you as a professional. That client will come to you.
Yeah, good point.
Um, Guaranteed rent. This is a very interesting one. So I realized when I was working in the industry that this is again another so-called incentive to lure people to purchase a particular type of property. It can be off the plan or it can be a house and land package. But essentially, for those who are listening who don't really understand, but guaranteed rent is essentially once you've purchased a particular property for a particular period of time, generally speaking, 12 months, they will the person or the company that you're purchasing from, they will actually offer for you and have it in writing that you'll have guaranteed rent at a particular amount per week. This is something that I would say very confidently that if someone is offering that to you, you should literally run for the hills. And there's a reason why I say that is because uh, it's something to ask yourself. A question is, an investment property is meant to be doing two key things, right? It's meant to be growing in capital but it's also been meant to be providing you growth in rental as well too. Now, if you have purchased with strong supply and demand factors in the right location and the right property, you should be asking yourself the question: should that not be growing naturally as it is? And should that not be actually going to extend that's going to go beyond what they're offering you? So that's something you should ask yourself the question, because if you have purchased in the right location, the market will do its job for you and the rental growth will occur. And I've witnessed that personally myself as well too. I don't need a cap on that with the rental guarantee. And so
Yeah.
if that is being offered to you, you got to think about it. It's because it's a sales incentive to lure you in as well too. So that I see that one happen a lot, and a lot of people fall trapped to it because they feel like, okay, I'm getting stability, I'm getting clarity, I know what my fixed income is going to look like, and they articulate those benefits to you, but you need to zoom out, look at the forest from the trees, and realize, wait a minute, a good investment property should be growing and performing, and I don't need guaranteed rent for that to be the case.
Sure, sure. I'm also guilty. I mean, I when I first started investing, I was also attracted to guaranteed rent. It seemed like, I mean, why not, right? Until some people very kindly told me that oftentimes that guaranteed rent is already baked into the purchase price. No doubt it's a brand new unit or house and land package, and that when that, like you said, 12 or 24 month of guaranteed rent ends, then most likely your rent will drop to whatever the market tread level is, which is, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to go with that. So yeah, that's a good one. That was number 3, I think.
Yeah, number three. And number four is definitely a bugbear of mine, because this one I've actually fallen into the trap of and made this mistake myself, which is to do with online courses. Now,
Oh no, I
I
don't like the way this is going. No, I'm just joking.
I was just about to say as well to look, not all online courses are designed that way to rip you off, and I think unfortunately you won't know until you really have dipped your toes into it. But generally speaking, my takeaway and what I want to share is, if you're looking for generic information, you can find that at a fraction of a cost, either just by doing your own research on Google or spending $30 to $40, and you can get a good book. And most books will cover that information in some shape or form. There is no need to spend hundreds and hundreds, or in some cases, thousands of dollars to do that if you're after generic information in particular. But of course, there are specific and niche individuals and companies who provide detailed courses, like yourself, of course. But that's, from my experience, tremendous value in those ones. But the ones who do this is a combination. They are the property marketing companies who do this, and buyers agents. And why I am not a fan of this is for a couple of reasons. Number one, a buyer's agent's main core service offering is to act on your behalf as a vendor. Now, they would not have it. They would not have a business if they did not have you as a client coming to them. So you need to understand that online course that a buyer's agent in particular is offering you, it's essentially an additional adjacent product from a business sense. And what they will intend to make you do, if you don't have knowledge and understanding, is psychologically make you feel, as you complete the course online, that, oh shit, I actually need this individual's help. Because how they position the content in a course is they tell you what's involved, what you need to be looking for, but the how's not there. And that's the gap that they do in these courses. And that is what happens in that case. And it's very implicit. They don't explicitly say to you, you need a buyer's agent, and you need the services of somebody. They are subconsciously getting you to upsell yourself to their full service. And I almost went through that myself, where I actually had completed a course. It was just under $900 that I spent. And at the time, I felt it was absolutely valuable because I was starting on my journey. So when you're absolutely brand new, you're soaking it in. But as time went by, I realized, wait a minute, this stuff is available a fraction of a cost. And in addition to that, a flag to look out for is that they will mention that this is actually valued at a certain price, like you see at a retail store, and say it's $2,000 and it's got a slash over it on the website. But you need to be mindful of those things. That if you remember, particularly with the buyer's agent, that's not their core service offering. That's not where they drive their significant revenue from. it's an adjacent smaller product, and you're essentially on the customer journey with them. So you need to be aware of that. And where the penny dropped for me was when I went on to do another self-paced online course that was at the value of $99. And that's when I realized what a disparity there was for the same content, $99 versus $900. So spend the time. I would encourage you, don't necessarily need to do high level self-paced courses, but if you do your research, think about it twice, thrice, four times before you go ahead and put that to your cart.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I don't know if you know, I don't know if you look at my marketing material, but like almost every day for like many, many, many years, I've always posted like a client deal. Like I posted your ones as well a while ago, and I tagged those clients. But in the copy of that, I always write something to the effect: "Don't be like tricked into buying a bait and switch course from a buyer's agent." And yeah, I'm so glad that you're saying that because I felt that I was the only one that thought that way. That I mean, it's yeah, that's what they do. It's a cheaper type offering, and people think, well, I know this guy, like this guy or girl. I've watched them on YouTube or different podcasts or whatever the case may be. The buyer's agent, a little bit expensive, 15 grand, two grand course, I can handle that. And then they just make it so overwhelming. They don't actually teach you what to do. It's kind of like a big, gateway drug to their ultimate full service. And if they really wanted to teach you, that would just cannibalize their core, as you said, their core business model, which they'll never do. And yeah, I think people need to clue on to this. In fact, there are now commercial buyers agents on both sides of the spectrum, some that are offering this kind of, paid course and others that are just giving a free course. And it's like everyone understands that they don't actually want you to do the course and get success. That's just the stepping stone to you building more trust, building more confidence in them. So then you'll hand over 15, $20,000, whatever it is. Of course, if someone's giving a free course, you can't really blame them, can you? But when it's paid, and oftentimes I don't know what you think about this, Azim, but I often get compared to like, oh, why do like PK's course like 6 grand? Like that's a lot of money when you can do this other course with like $500 or 200, or you go to Udemy and it's like $150 courses. And I think just to reiterate your point, there are courses and then there are courses. And I really feel that generic courses, great, feel free to do it. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but you can get that information free if you want through different, podcasts, Facebook groups, Googling. But then the ones that, and I'm not the only one with a good course, I don't want to say that I'm the only one, but the ones that do well and actually are worth it and get you actionable success are those that also provide mentorship, okay, sort of some sort of human element, and also not just generic information, but key how, like quote unquote how, not just what and why, but the exact systematic method with all the tools, etc., of how. So, and especially in the property development space, which I don't play in, in terms of teaching, there are yeah, some really expensive courses, like $40,000 you can spend in development, but they actually are worth the money, even though they're 40 grand, because they actually teach you how to develop, and you can actually go ahead and make a lot of money. So. I think this differentiation between different types of courses that you're mentioning, in your own words, yes, is really important.
Absolutely. So the fifth one is sponsored trips to property location. So this is essentially what this means is when you've purchased an investment property and it is in the form of being built, in particular for new properties, the company that you've purchased through will be taking you out to actually fly you out and check out the development of that and the progress as well too. Sometimes it'll be maybe once or twice through the whole development and the build of that investment property. Or sometimes it could be a little bit more frequent. And when you're new to this arena and you're thinking about, oh wow, like oh you tell your partner or you tell your friends, or like, oh yeah, I'm going to be flying out. I'm going to be going to Brisbane. I'm going to be going to Adelaide. Or I'm going to be going here, and they're taking me out and they're going to be showing me around, and it's a proper tour, and I'm being looked after. Did you have to pay for that? No, no, that's all included as well too. Wow, that's so good, isn't it? It's easy to fall into that trap and convince yourself as a buyer and a consumer. Yeah, absolutely. I've made the right decision because look at all these additional benefits that I'm getting as well too. Had I gone and purchased it myself, I'd have to book my own flights. I'd have to go out there and do all this myself. Whereas this is all being taken care for me. So you can easily convince yourself and do that as well too. And on paired with the fantastic marketing that these companies do as well too, both through social media, their written email communication they send out to clients. So it's ongoing messaging as well too that's subconsciously telling your brain, oh great, this is an additional benefit. But what most people don't realize is, again, you have to zoom back out and think about, okay, in the context of purchasing a brand new property, you need to put yourself in the eyes and then the shoes of a developer and a builder. Now, for them, this is a business, and no business is going to be manufacturing and developing a product and selling it at a loss. They'll always be want to be selling it at a profit. So it's a business for them. Now, you have to think about it. If you were in their shoes, would you not be factoring in all of these costs? And that's exactly what they do. They think about all the costs that are associated, right from your generic holding of the land for as long as they need to and the loans they need to, the interest that needs to be paid until they start the development of that project, all the way through to all of these things that they're going to provide to you as a client. These are all baked into the final price that you're purchasing. So do not be lured by by the fact that this is for free. It is not free. It's just that it's being baked into the purchase of the property price because the developer needs to actually make a return on investment. And same to the early point around the guaranteed rent as well too, Picky. Like that is baked in as well too. I've seen the modeling that gets done on this in the back end. So these are baked into the price that you are paying for. So you actually did end up paying for it. It's just being marketed to you that it's free.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like you said, if you put yourself in the shoes of a developer, you'd love for there to be a property investment company or quote unquote buyer's agent that markets your units or townhouses or house land packages to all these investors, because you don't have to market then. You don't have to hire a real estate agent. All of this is done, and you'd be happy to pay them, right? And of course, you just bake it all in. And so that middleman, that property investment company, they're making money from the developer, they're making money from the client, the property investor. It's happy days. And, next thing you know, they might be on the Australian Financial Review fastest growing businesses. Who knows?
Absolutely. So number 6 is new properties only. So regardless of who you're engaging with or what content you're consuming out there, and whatever the company may be or their service offering, if this individual or this company is only going to be presenting and encouraging that you need to purchase new properties, that is a flag. And that is definitely something that you need to think about as well too. Um, I wouldn't necessarily say that new properties are not beneficial. I think they have their own sets of pros and cons, just as an existing property does, and it really comes down to you as an individual and the things we all know about as an investor: your strategy, your risk tolerance, and your plan, and where you are in your journey. But if they're specifically going down one avenue, I think that is something to really think about. And what these professionals will try and do is to sell you all the benefits, which are the pros, but they won't really talk about the cons. And they'll just continue to harp on that in that avenue. And one of the biggest ones, and again, is a bugbear of mine, is depreciation benefits. So it's just constantly bastardized about the benefits of doing this. And for those who are listening, just to simplify this for you, it's kind of like saying you're deciding which gym you want to go to help you achieve your fitness goals. And all you're being told is, oh, inside the gym, in a particular corner, there is certain equipment that is fantastic. It's the state of the art equipment, right? And they just keep talking about the benefits of this particular equipment that's within the section of the gym. But wait a minute. Number one, how far is the gym? Is it in close proximity to you? How much is the cost for the membership? Can you actually afford to actually pay the membership long term? What's the environment like? Is there enough parking for you to get at the gym as well too? So the really core and fundamental questions you need to be asking is something that you need to think about, and that's not actually being shared with you either by the gym and the people who are trying to sell you membership there. So bring that into the context of property investing. There is a core fundamental amount of factors that are going to be growth of the property. But that's not being focused on, just focusing on the cherry on top, which is depreciation as well too. And that too if you should and when you decide to sell, that needs to gets factored back in as well too at the time of selling from a tax point of view too. So
Mm.
new properties, be very careful of those. Personally, this is not financial advice, but if you're starting out, it's your first property, I would definitely stay away from purchasing brand new property, anyways. And definitely from these individuals or companies who will only talk about the benefits of new and why you shouldn't be buying existing.
Yeah. And there's literally, I mean, there's literally like 1,000 plus of these companies too. It's not like, oh, we always get on our Facebook group, people saying, I found this company who's like, guaranteed rent or all the stuff that you're talking about, brand new property. And they're like, I found this like really good operator. And then, just kind of being in the position that I am, and of course you can see this too, you're like, there's literally 1,000 of these. None of these single operators is special regardless of how they add. And keeping on to your gym membership, oh sorry, your gym analogy, my gym just announced at the start of October that they're no longer going to be giving free towels for every session. Normally they give the towel, and then after you've done, you put it in like the towel bin and they wash it. And the reason they said this was because they want to save water for the environment. And I was like, this is the ultimate smoke and mirrors. I was like, come on, we all know you're just trying to reduce your costs and not provide towel. Don't get the environment and do it anyway. It was crazy. So I don't know why I said that, but I think I'm still vexed about it.
Yes, I think it's just it's there's too much focus given on sort of the small components, but not about the broader aspects of it. The seventh one is discouraging of doing your own independent research. And again, this kind of talks to what we were talking about earlier about, if you genuinely, what you have to say and what you have to offer in your product or service, if it genuinely is valuable for clients, then it will stand true for them. When they go off and do their own independent research or do their cross checking, there will be strength and validity in what you have to say or what you have to offer. So um, anyone who is discouraging from you doing your own independent research is again a red flag. And sometimes what I'm experienced speaker, it's very subtle. It's subtle in the sense of there'll be to sort of paint a picture for people listening who are watching this. If there might be a presentation that you're being presented to, and there are multiple slides, and there's all these graphs that are there as well too. And what they'll do is they'll flick through these slides at a very rapid pace to firstly make you believe that actually they've done so much due diligence and research on this particular area and this particular work. But they also then, because there's so much sometimes information on a particular slide, they make you focus on certain areas, and then they will challenge you in a very non-confrontational way as well too, by saying, "Hey, why don't you go and actually check it out as well too, and you'll find that this is not the case as well too." Or they'll say to you, "And this is exactly why we do this. We do all this information so that you don't fall into the trap of having to do this. So your time is saved. So your money is saved." So during the presentation, they throw these things in there because what you're seeing and what you're hearing is telling you, "Oh wow, they've done all this research for me. They're telling me that I don't need to go off and do any research because it's all done. I just need to sign on the dotted line." Yeah. And I remember in particular there was one time when, because I was in the industry, I had an opportunity to look at the presentations, right? So I had the privilege of seeing these slides. And I remember one of the slides was talking about the growth in demographics that was happening with the type of professionals moving into an area.
Mhm.
And what was interesting was the actual growth that was being shared was minuscule, but the way they had conflated the slide and the bar graph on the PowerPoint made it appear as if, oh my goodness, the professionals are just like it's skyrocketing in this area as well too. But because during the presentation they flick through this information so quickly, and you're new to this, you have no idea. You're remembering the visuals. You're not remembering the specific data and the statistics or being able to really contextualize that data. But when I sat back and I looked at it, I'm like, wait a minute. So how much growth has it really been? So that's something else you need to think about as well too. And I would encourage that. Firstly, pushback is something to I would do is in a very polite way is push back to give yourself the time to do your own due diligence. But if your gut is telling you you're not getting the opportunity to do that, and they're really pressuring you and pushing you up against the back wall, then I would say there's no point even asking for time. Just walk away and leave it as well too, because I think in all parts of life, you should be given the opportunity to have a free will. And if you're not going to be given that, that's a red flag.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. It's almost sometimes masked as and I don't think this is hopefully this is not too aggressive, but it's like it's almost like passive aggressive kind of narrative where it's like, don't you realize how expert we are? Don't you realize how long we've been in the game? Don't you realize how much experience we have? Like, there's no way you, as a brand new property investor, could possibly compete with our level of intellect, pedigree, and competence. And I get that vibe from from like a lot of people in the industry a lot. And in fact, that's a lot of their yeah, that's a lot of their sales pitch. I mean, we've negotiated 1,000 deals. There's no way you can negotiate as well as I can, or, we've bought 1,000 properties in this city. There's no way you could get something off market that we've not already seen. And if you're a new investor, it's really hard to kind of disagree with that because you're like, yeah, of course, like, of course I can't compete with you. Like, I know nothing about this. I'm like an electrician or I'm a nurse or whatever the case may be. But really, that's not the truth. And I think that's a really good point that you're making. If you, like you said, do get free education, if you do ask the right questions, then you'll start to find that these things anyone can do. Of course, you need to have a willingness to do it and to learn, but anyone can do it. So yeah, it's a really good point around around that the aspect of kind of creating that opaqueness on a lot of that intellectual side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 8 is suggestions of exclusiveness. So they'll often say that a company or an individual has exclusive access to one of a few things, either exclusive access to data or have exclusive access to a particular area, or then in particular have exclusive access to a specific type of property available that's not on the market to the general public. So it's a different ways in how they can position exclusiveness as well too. But the bottom line is, and this is, after being on both sides of the fence of seeing how it is in the industry, but then also doing my own research and due diligence off the back end of my own education, including, your course, is anyone who's following the data will know exactly where the opportunities are, both in a cool market and a hot market. So this is not some sort of crystal ball, or it's not that it's only for the privileged across Australia who have this information. Anyone who has access to this information and can understand what the data is telling them will know where the opportunities are, both as a traditional investor client, private client, but also those who professionally work in the industry, like a buyer's agent as well too. So the simple takeaway with this is anyone who says that to you is not telling you the truth. They are not the only company who have exclusive access. No one can say I'm the only one who has exclusive access to information. Now, when it comes to exclusive access to certain properties, that too is not the case. And generally, what happens is developers, if they can, they would prefer to sell their house and land packages or sell their properties, their off the plan apartments themselves. Why? Because again, you got to think about it like a business. If they have to outsource that and get somebody else to sell it on their behalf, that's a cost to them. They're not
Right.
doing it for free. They have to pay them. So if they can, they will do it themselves and they will continue to do that. In addition to getting people around them, sales companies to help them sell it as well too. So whilst you're interacting with a particular individual or a particular company, you don't know how many other people are actually getting involved and selling those properties as well too. So regardless of if it's information or if it's properties, do not fall for that trap because that exclusiveness is definitely not the case.
Yeah, good one.
And the last is offering end-to-end services. So I don't think there's anything wrong with offering end-to-end services across property transactions, but I think it really just comes down to understanding that two things. One, often that there actually is you're going to be getting value and service that's not at a premium level or a premium service, but also as well too, it could potentially be masking the dynamics and the ethics of that company as well. So just to play a little bit example of how this plays out. So with buyers agents, I've seen many of them do this. So they start with offering online courses. They'll also offer that will just do the suburb research for you only. Then of course they've got the actual service of acting on your behalf and helping you find a property, setting up your self-managed super fund as well too, right? An accountant. So literally all the key elements are being offered by a buyer's agent. And you got to think back and ask yourself, well, wait a minute. As a buyer's agent, their core of service offering, it's the skills required to do that is incredible. It's not something that you can just develop overnight. The ability to build relationships, the ability to do your research and analysis correctly, to be able to understand what the data is telling you, for you to, as a professional, to then understand how do I actually convey this and communicate this to a client who's not in the industry and needs to understand this in simple language. Then doing all the liaising and the planning, the coordination, there's and the negotiating. Like there's a range of different skills that are required. So particularly for small businesses, you got to ask you the question: how can someone be offering not just that service offering, but end to end as well too? So it's often in those cases they're getting referrals and they're actually getting those services outsourced by other people, and they're getting a kickback from that. And in other cases as well too, they're just wanting to earn more income from you as well too. So when it comes to sales companies as well too, they'll offer you to actually get the property managed by you guys, and they'll say things like, "We only do this for our investor clients. We don't do this for everybody else," to make you feel like you're a VIP person, or you've got this privilege that no one else does. And they'll charge you a lower management fee, but in the back end, there's like literally one person managing 200 properties and there's no support staff.
Yeah.
So you need to be very wary of end-to-end services. And I personally like to have independent people doing different parts of the transaction. So sometimes it can be quite beneficial as well too. And I'm not saying everyone out there is like that, but I think it's just a matter of just being wary of the fact that if someone is offering it, you just got to ask this question: why? Why are they doing that? And dig deeper.
Yeah, no, it's good point. And are they like you're saying, are they white labeling it and saying it's actually them, or are they being open to say, this is actually someone else, like we really like them because, of our experience with them, but you don't have to use them. You can use these other people and these other people, or you can bring your own people. Like, I don't think there's anything, like you've said as well, there's not anything wrong with referrals in of itself as long as it's being transparent with the customer. But I do think that there are some types of referrals, like let's say building and pest, that you really ought to not be getting kickbacks from because that's really meant to act as a check, like a check and balance. The building and pest is really, that person's really meant to say, trying to find ways to say this property is not good. That's really what you want as a client, as an investor, to really get the brass truth, the reality of what that property is about. So there's some professions where I don't think kickbacks are appropriate at all, because then the incentive structure means that, oh yeah, it's a seamless process until the transaction's finished, you've settled, and now they're not responsible for anything, and now stuff starts to unravel. So I think it's really incumbent, like you're saying, on the investor themselves to form a team, and be conscious and intentful with who the components of that team are, and know how to manage that team as well, whether or not they're from referrals or not. So yeah, thanks for sharing that one.
So those are the nine, in a nutshell. And just as we were just speaking, Pico, I was just just the thought came to me as well too is what's something to be aware of is these individuals and these companies out there. And I've seen a lot of them. Is what makes it really really challenging for everyday individuals and Australians, particularly if they don't have a lot of experience. Unfortunately, these individuals are just so confident when they speak. They're so articulate and see have been doing it out of business for however many years. So they've learned the practice of repetition on how to communicate themselves and get their messages across. That it's not always about what's being said, but how it's being said. And we all fall to that, right? And all different assets of our life, we always hear the saying that it's not the words you say, but it's how you're saying it that people
Yeah.
think about. And that's what plays out in this regard as well too, in the industry as well too, that these individuals just speak in such confidence, such conviction, and such authority that you will just succumb to it because whilst yes, you're listening to the words that are coming out of their mouth, you're also following their tone, their pace, and the way that they're conveying and conducting themselves. And I've fallen to that trap as well too. And now I'm at a point where I look at someone and even if they're talking confident, I'm like, yeah, I don't know how much I believe in what you're saying anymore. But you only get that sort of level of filtering process in your mind when you've sort of gone through that and you've seen it. But look, obviously at the end of the day, you need to be confident. Otherwise, you can't be timid as well too. I completely get that from a business sense as well. But um, because I've been on the other side, I've realized that, how much preparation these individuals and these companies go through, buyers agents and others, to get their message across and make it come across, what they're talking about with confidence as well too. So just again, be very wary of that as well too. I personally think, the confidence in your results shine through anyways. So you don't necessarily need to have that shine through for you. You don't need to vocalize that.
Mm,
But I think there is a challenge with that and how I would help actually get people to think about it is like, well, how do I then know if this person's so confident how to convince myself? How do I then know and
yeah,
distill between?
exactly.
So I think there are a few tips that I would share. Number one um, is spend the time to actually talk to someone that you trust. So that could be for me, in my case, that's my wife. But whoever it is for you, spend the time to talk to them, bounce it off with them. Even better, if you can get them to come along with you to the conversations in person or virtually. I think there's nothing better than that because typically, if one of you is really driving the force and the lead in property investing and the other isn't, the other person actually is going to be your strength in this because they're not going to be looking at things detailed, they'll look at a bit more broadly, and
Yeah.
they'll definitely pick up stuff that you're not picking up. So I've seen that happen many times where my wife has actually said to me, yeah, but did you see that? Did you think about that? What about this as well too? And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually a really really good point. So I think having someone there with you is great. If not, use them as a someone you can bounce ideas off. Spend the time speaking to others as well too. You won't know if you just speak to one person. So
Mhm.
I would spend the time speak to different people, and then you'll start to notice patterns yourself. You'll see what are the similarities in what they say, do, and come across, and where are things dissimilar in what they say, do, and come across as well too. And what I've done in the past, I write it down because sometimes you can forget what was said in an hour's conversation, but spend the time, write it down, what was similar, what wasn't, and then you can look back and reflect on that. Um, but above all, above what you see, what you hear, what you're told, trust your gut as well too. I've also found that often your gut is telling you something, and if it is, it's majority of the time it is actually leading you in the right direction and telling you the truth for the
Mm.
most part. So, sometimes you can be very logical and say, "Yep, this is factually what I'm hearing and seeing. I've cross-checked that with someone who's a trusted advisor," but come back to your gut as well too, because your gut will tell you the truth most of the time.
Yeah. I like it how you're also presenting solutions to each of the signals of a quote unquote scam as well. So that's really helping people. It's obviously normal, I suppose, for business owners when they market to be confident. Worst thing is, when you have like someone doing a public speaking gig on stage and they start the session with like, oh, like I'm really not qualified to talk about this, but I'll try my best. You just lose all confidence in them, right? So it's kind of like a catch-22, I suppose, in a way. But no, your points are well taken, and yeah, I think just question everything. Like even question what we're talking about here. Like I know a lot of people probably comment, be like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Bought through, buys agent or whatever. House and land package with a rental guarantee. Property went up 50% last 2 years. Azim, don't know what you're talking about. PK, you're just pushing your agenda. But it's like question us, question everything. Of course, last few years, a lot of things have property's gone up. It's been really easy, but it's not often the case like this, especially not going forward. You have to be really scientific. So try to see the forest from the trees, as you've been saying. And one example really comes to mind. Like there's, of course, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's like really prominent buyer's agent, on all the industry bodies, all podcasts, just like super famous. And she is like really well known and respected, been in the industry for 20, I don't know how long, 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it is. But then I've received so many messages over DM on Facebook saying, oh, this person helped me buy in this part of Geelong, at the start of COVID, and the property's gone up like 30K on a base of 700K. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, through COVID, how is that even possible? Like everything went up at least double digits, right? So it's like, when I kind of in a unique position where people share this sort of thing with me, and I'm like, of course I can't share it publicly often, but it kind of, it cements it for me that what you're talking about is real, and it needs to be talked about more and more often. And you've screened, I think you said before we started recording, like dozens of buyers agents. As a consumer, you've also been on, in the industry on the other side, so to speak. So I think you have a really good handle of it. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this. You don't have to. I don't want to put you on the spot. We can edit this out if you want, Azim. But you mentioned before we hit record that one buyer's agent, of course we won't name them, wanted to try to hire you, and then you kind of found some unscrupulous practices, of course without mentioning any names or doing any of that sort of stuff. What are sort of the inner workings in that space that you've been exposed to?
Look, I think the very first thing was what this individual was doing when they were first starting off on social media. They were sharing a lot of and creating a lot of very similar to this as well, to limited time, fear of missing out, and consistently providing messaging online through social media and offline as well too, which was that their intention was to remain boutique, and these were the words used. Their intention was to work with selected clients, and they did not want to be going any further than that. But fast forward, that has not remained true, and they've actually gone up and done the complete opposite of that as well too, and completely going off and purchasing, uh, properties that are not necessarily poised for growth, and not necessarily in the best interest of the clients as well too, just purely because the traffic that they've received over time through both organic and paid marketing. Why wouldn't you, when you're seeing the dollars come through?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you then start to think about how can I scale my business, even though initially that's not what you intended to do and that's not what you articulated, both offline and online. And that was what was shared with me when I was being asked to consider to be part of them and in the infancies. The other thing as well too, as I saw was, and this one I have a lot of passion for, is the use of the word property investment strategy. So there were sessions that were being scheduled, one-to-one sessions, and they initially started at a price of about $100 for a 45-minute one-to-one session. And over the years, it went from $100 to about $450 for that same 45-minute session. So again, it was because there was a lot of interest that was coming through, mainly from social media, that then allowed that for the whole demand to increase, for them to actually increase their price. But in reality, that one-on-one is not a strategy session. It's just a sales pitch to essentially help you understand what we do as a buyer's agency and how we can help you. What are the next steps going to look like? That's essentially what it is. And when you're in it, you completely forget about, oh wait, what was this meant to be? This was a strategy session. Oh no, it's not actually a strategy session. That's what it is. And before you know it, you're already too far down the track in the conversation, and you've forgotten about it, because most people don't understand what strategy really means. And the documentation that follows from it, and what I saw, was referred to as strategic blueprint. But going through that 15-page document, it was just majority of it was just generic information and showing information about how they would go about what they do and how they go about it. It wasn't what a true strategy involves. And I realized this when I started to develop my own strategy. A really thorough and comprehensive strategy is not developed and documented overnight. It does
Yeah.
not happen.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of thinking, a lot of discussion, a lot of liaising with different people and the input of different people to then start to formulate, what does this need to look like. And a buyer's agent cannot do that in a 45-minute session. They would need to, if they were doing this correctly, they would need to spend, I would say practically anywhere from 3 to 4 sessions, with a lot of work in between those sessions, to really then at the end say, okay, here's an actual 15, 20 20-page document that's customized to you. But this document that I was seeing was also raising red flags, saying, this is not a strategy. And I wonder how many other buyers agents are doing this out there and confusing people because they don't know what they don't know. And if you don't know what you don't know, it's so much more easy to confuse you and make you sell and buy something like. And these words make you feel like, oh, strategic blueprint. That's amazing. Look at what this buyers agent's doing for me. But when you look at it, you go, so many of these pages are just templates, and they just don't have to edit that for the next client and for the next client. So these are some of the things that I was seeing, and that's what really deterred me to go. I'm like, "Oh, this is not cool. What's going on there?" And I think it was heart crushing because I was like, here is a company, an individual who was one of thousands who speaks so confidently, but behind the scenes, this is what's going on. And it's heart crushing, right? Because you go, this is property is the most expensive thing that people will ever purchase in their lifetime, and yet here there are people who come across and say the right things and say we are ethical and we only want to do this and this is how we do it. But then they go and do the complete opposite and completely lose trust. And you go, well, how can I believe what anyone says? So that was my experience with them. I definitely didn't use them either as a client or also in a professional sense and be a part of them. But that was some of the practical things that I saw and heard.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if that session is free, but if you have to pay 400 or 500 bucks for it, then it can be a yeah, bitter pill to swallow when you come out the other end, not really getting anything worthwhile. I don't think you can blame anyone for, um, like you said, supply demand. You can't blame anyone for like increasing their prices or like you said as well. Initially you want to be boutique and then you scale and it's like, sure, business strategies can change. Like, who am I to judge someone else's kind of strategy year to year? But I think the undercurrent of transparency should be there. It's like, okay, now we've changed, and this is the reason why, and this is how we'll continue servicing you with really decent properties. And I think it's great. A lot of buyers agents are raking in the cash. That's good for them, and everyone needs to pay the bills. So it's good that they're successful. But on the other side of things, what the customer or the client doesn't realize there's only so many decent properties in Australia at any one time to buy. And, if the buyer's agent has a wait list of 30 people, he needs to get through like another 30 in a month. There's like 60 people in the pipeline. You can't be buying properties every day. It's just not possible unless the clients are buying themselves in all different locations, but you can't just be doing that, with deep quality properties with a small team and, just one or two locations. So, look, not to judge anyone, but yeah, these are just the realities, and I think where you're doing a terrific job of at least sowing some seeds in people's minds so that they can take this stuff more seriously and do their due diligence with more meaning and yeah, with more intent. Was there anything that I haven't asked you or that we haven't discussed so far that you wanted to cover?
I think I'll probably just share that this is something I learned a little bit later in the journey, and I wish I'd learned this at the start, was treating property investing like it's your business. Because when you come with that mindset, I realize now that everything flows from it. Your thoughts flow from that, the type of questions you ask yourself and you ask others flows from that. How you hold people accountable within your team who are assisting you will flow from that, and a range of different things. But the mindset needs to start from there. And coming back to what we've discussed and shared here about these signs and buyers agents and other companies out there as well too. If you were to going off and starting your own business, would you just um off the back end of just one session with somebody, just give them the opportunity to outsource and do something for you? Or would you actually spend the time, interrogate in a professional way, go and speak to other people as well too, understand what are the pros and cons as well too, what are the costs, what am I getting for that as well too, not just the price, what's the value I'm getting for that price as well too? I would like to think you absolutely would be doing those things if you were going to go and run off and start your own business. But somehow a lot of us don't do that when we come to property investing as well too. We don't apply that as well too. And I think I would encourage people to really do that and think about it. Wait, let me think about this property that I'm planning to purchase or going down this path as business? And if so, then would I go off and straight away just sign on the dotted line with it for a particular property or with this buyer's agent? You probably wouldn't. You'd be more cautious because you're thinking of it like a business owner who in this case wants to scale or is considering the scale. So I would encourage you think of it and have that mindset of a business because I find once it's really embedded in you, everything you do say just flows out from that.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, really well said. I think, like, I don't know if this is true or not. You can disagree with me if you want, Azim, but I feel like the best way to do due diligence sometimes is to talk with clients of that business, but find them yourself. So, like, don't ask for referrals that you can call, references, sorry, that you can call, but find them on social media or somewhere else, and just because then they'll tell you the truth. They'll be like, yeah, these parts were good, but these parts weren't good. So I really encourage people to do that. I always encourage them to do about myself, like, go talk to my clients. They're all so many of them are tagged on the Facebook group, like, almost every day I tag someone. So go back to 2 years ago, someone who was tagged, go find them, DM them. Most times if people have something great to share, they'll reply. And most times if they have something really bad to share about a business, they'll also take the time to reply. So you'll get the far extremes, and you want some far extremes. But no, that's awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Hopefully, Azim, your intent was simply to educate and warn people and provide some solutions. I think you've done that really well. I kind of feel if I did this interview with you before you were my client, I'd be like scratching. I was like, do I really want Azim as a client? Seems like a tough one. I don't want to be exposed. But no, I'm just joking. But I'm really grateful actually now that I know that you've done so much. Thinking on the matter, that you somehow found myself to be hopefully trustworthy enough, and hopefully you still feel that way. So thanks so much.
No, I appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much.
And thank you everyone for watching or listening. Yeah, it's kind of content that I mean, I didn't know I would produce this because Azim reached out to me very kindly, but you don't really get this kind of content anywhere else, not least from buyer's agents. So hopefully you appreciate it. If you do, hit the subscribe button, give it a like. All right, thank you everyone, and thanks again, Azim.